You don't notice when it starts the eyes following you, the silence that suddenly feels too heavy. By the time you realize, you're trapped. These true horror stories reveal how ordinary commutes became unforgettable nightmares. I don't tell this to scare kids out of laughing in cars on a Friday night. I tell it because sometimes the night is the thing looking in. And because the choice you make between a headlight and a heartbeat can follow you for years. It was the early 2000s. Junior year. Back when our plans were simple, someone's living room, a tower of DVDs, and a bag of neon orange chips you could smell from the driveway. That Friday we met at Jeremy's place, a quiet neighborhood with copy and paste houses and street lights that painted the sidewalks the color of weak tea. I pulled up with Sam in his Radley sedan. A minute later Jeremy parked behind us with Casey riding shotgun. We were early, and instead of going inside to say hi to his parents, we stayed in the cars with the radio low. Windows fogged. Jokes got dumb. The kinds of laughs that feel like borrowing air from a future version of yourself. We should have gone in. We didn't. A white van turned into the neighbor's driveway. Not a delivery logo, not a ladder on top. Just a plain, dull van that could park on any street in America and vanish into it. The engine kept running. The headlights pinned the neighbor's porch and front door in a cold rectangle. We went quiet in pieces. Radio off. Mouths closed. That's when I noticed the engine's hum. It had weight to it, like a sound you could lift and be surprised by how heavy it is. The driver door opened. A man stepped out. 30 or 40. Dark jacket. Baseball cap without a team. Average in a way that felt designed. He climbed the porch steps and leaned into the narrow pane of glass next to the door, one hand braced on the frame, the other cupped near his face to see inside. He didn't knock. He didn't ring. He just looked. "Do you know him?" Jeremy asked, eyes never leaving the porch. "No," I said. "The people next door are out of town." We waited for something reasonable to happen. When it didn't, time began to stretch. Curiosity curdled into the kind of silence that makes you aware of your own breath. 5 minutes. 10. 15. The van idled. The man stayed at the glass, still as a decal. "Call someone," Casey whispered. "Call and say what?" Sam said. "A guy's looking at a window." Casey twisted to see the back of the van and scrawled the plate number on the torn corner of a notebook. He whispered the letters and numbers as he wrote, like he didn't trust his own hand. At nearly 20 minutes, the man straightened, turned, and walked back down the steps. He didn't look around. He didn't hurry. He got into the van. For a second the interior light clicked on and cut a square out of his face, cheek, chin, the quick economy of his hands, then it disappeared. The engine revved. "That's the part where we should have gone inside," told Jeremy's dad, "called the cops. Instead, we made the kind of teenage decision that sounds brave because it's stupid." "Follow him," Casey said, voice flat. Jeremy started the car. We rolled away from the curb with the headlights off, as if darkness was a costume you could put on and be believed. At the end of the block the van turned right. We turned right. The van kept just under the speed limit, like someone carefully carrying a full cup. Then, after 2 more turns, it eased faster. Not much. Just enough to say, "I know you're there." "Back off," I said. "I am," Jeremy lied, leaning forward to see. The van floated through a green light as it went yellow. We stopped at the red. The van dissolved into the night like it had been poured into it. No one spoke on the drive back. When we parked again, we finally noticed the street light above us. It threw a perfect circle over the exact spot where our windows had fogged, a lit stage we'd mistaken for a hiding place. Inside, the house smelled like citrus cleaner and heat. Jeremy's mom had left brownies under foil. His dad watched a game in the den with the volume too low and the lights too bright. We didn't tell them. We camped in the basement, started a movie we didn't watch, and did that new thing you learn at 17, pretending you're okay while your body rehearses panic against a couch cushion. Around midnight, we argued about calling the police. It wasn't really an argument. It was a line of reasons you tell yourself when you don't want to break the surface. "What's the crime?" Sam asked. "Looking." "What if someone was inside?" I said. "Then they'd call." "What if they were scared?" "That hung there." "We let it." Casey unfolded the paper with the plate number and smoothed it on his knee like a treasure map. Then he passed it to me. "Put it in your wallet," he said. "Don't lose it." I slid it behind my school ID, told myself that meant I'd do the right thing later. It's amazing how convincing later can sound when you say it in your own head. We didn't sleep. The furnace cycled. The refrigerator upstairs thumped. Every sound could have been an engine. Every engine could have been a return. Morning made everything look reasonable. That's a trick houses do. Waffles. Bacon. Daylight on the yard. On the porch next door, the narrow pane of glass looked smaller than it had at 2 a.m., just a strip of window, just a reflection of a sky that didn't care. I carried the plate number around all day like a hot coin and didn't call. I was embarrassed by the words I'd have to use: average guy, no knock, 20 minutes, yes we followed him, no we didn't keep up because we stopped at a light. That evening I finally dialed the non-emergency line. The woman on the phone was calm and careful. She took the plate, repeated it back, asked if there had been a break-in. No. Any damage? No. Had the neighbors reported anything? No. We always prefer people call, she said. Even if you're not sure. Especially if you're not sure. She said she'd make a note. I hung up and stared at the phone like it might teach me how to be a different kind of person. Nothing happened after that. That's one version. No police knocking on our doors. No news story. No reveal. The neighbors came home and waved to Jeremy's dad the way people wave when they're trying to keep a neighborhood the same size. Another version: everything happened. I learned the exact pitch of an idling engine by heart. It found me in grocery store lots and behind gas stations and outside sandwich shops where I took my breaks on a picnic table facing the dumpsters. A white van once parked by the back fence and sat there for 20 minutes. I watched it through the reflective glass of the shop door, saw only sky where a face should be, and felt my stomach drop like an elevator. It pulled away. I pretended it was nothing. It was not nothing. Time did what time does. We graduated. We drifted apart in polite directions. Sometimes, when our paths crossed, somebody would say, "Remember the white van," and the others would say, "Yeah." We said it like a weather report about a storm that missed us but still soaked our shoes. Years later, in a different state, I sat in my car outside my own house and watched a white van do a slow loop through my cul-de-sac. Once. Twice. A third time, pausing at the end like it had almost remembered something. I didn't follow. I didn't call. I locked my door twice, then unlocked and relocked it because I didn't like who that made me. That same night I dug through the junk drawer for a stick-on door chime I'd bought and never used. I pressed it to the frame, aligned the magnet, felt it click in. I tested it and listened to the small, sensible sound it made. It didn't cure anything. It made the dark slightly different. When people hear this, they ask what I think the man was doing at that window. I have theories. Everyone does. Maybe he was timing a house. Maybe he had the wrong address and didn't know how to be wrong. Maybe he was checking for a dog, or waiting to see if a light moved, or measuring his own nerve. I don't know. What I do know is that he didn't knock. And you can tell a lot about a plan by whether it expects to be invited in. Here's the useful part, stripped of story, call. Tell someone. Especially if you're not sure. You don't get points for solving it yourself. You don't get a prize for silence. Silence is just a nice box to hide guilt in. If you find yourself under a street light laughing in a car, remember that light is a spotlight, not a curtain. The cone it casts is not a hiding place. A person who wants to see you can. We were 4 kids thinking we'd disappeared by staying quiet. We were not gone. We were displayed. I still think about the way he leaned into that pane of glass, the patience of it. I still think about the 20 minutes, and about the red light we obeyed, and about all the ways a life can turn on a signal that means stop. Sometimes I'm proud of that stop. Sometimes I wish we'd run it. Most nights I'm just grateful we got to have the argument. Jeremy sells insurance now, the kind that names the things you don't want to think about. Sam teaches 7th grade science and demonstrates condensation on windows with his breath, and I wonder if, on some days, he's thinking of that porch. Casey works at a housing nonprofit and seems happiest when he's putting a key in someone else's hand. We text once in a while. Remember the white van? One of us will write. Yeah, someone answers, and we let the rest stay where we left it. Because in the end there's no twist, no courtroom, no satisfying headline. Just a night, a white van, a man who looked in without asking, and 4 teenagers who learned that being hidden isn't the same as being safe. The world is full of white vans, most of them harmless. But if one stops where it shouldn't, and someone leans in where they don't belong, time will stretch again. In that stretch, you'll choose. I hope you choose to make the call. I hope someone picks up. I hope you laugh again later and mean it. And if you ever memorize the sound of an engine and carry it in your teeth the way I did, you'll understand why I still tell this not to frighten you, but to hand you the thing I wish I'd taken sooner, a dial tone, a voice on the other end, and a small chime on a door that knows the difference between in and out. I was 17 in the summer of 2009, and if you'd asked me back then, I'd have told you I felt perfectly safe in my world. Safe to the point of boredom. I had a job at the local supermarket, one of those chain stores that lit up half the block with its neon sign and smelled faintly of waxed floors, coffee, and overripe fruit. The job wasn't glamorous. Mostly, I bagged groceries, collected carts from the parking lot, and fetched things for customers who couldn't quite reach the top shelf. But I liked it well enough. My mother worked there, too, as did my older sister, and the place had become a kind of second home. The regulars knew my face, some of the older guys who'd been working there for years looked out for me, and the managers were protective in that half annoyed, half paternal way. It was the sort of job where you got teased, covered shifts for each other, and learned the subtle language of size that passed between cashier and bagger when a customer's cart was stacked like a game of Jenga. I didn't know then how quickly safety can dissolve. How fast the lights of a familiar place can turn hostile. It was a suffocatingly hot day. The kind of heat that makes the air outside shimmer like it's breathing. I'd just hauled a dozen carts across the lot, the metal burning my palms, sweat sticking my shirt to my back. I ducked into the small pizza shop inside the supermarket to grab some water. I remember the relief of stepping into the blast of air conditioning, the way it wrapped around me like a cold hand. That's when he appeared. I didn't notice him walk up 1 second. The space around me was ordinary, the next a man was there, 20-something maybe, 30s at most. His expression didn't belong to the situation. No small smile, no polite excuse me. He slid a folded scrap of paper into my hand without a word. His fingers barely touched mine, but it was enough to make me aware of every inch of skin. Then he turned and left, just like that, moving away with no explanation. I stared at the paper. It was a phone number, scrawled in uneven ink. That was all. No name, no message. Just a string of digits like a code to something I didn't want to unlock. I shoved it into my pocket, unsettled, and told myself it was nothing. But the next day, it wasn't nothing. The sun was sinking when I crossed the lot after a shift, my cart pushing across the cracked asphalt. That's when I noticed it, a silver minivan gliding alongside me. Not speeding. Just matching my pace in an unnatural, deliberate way. The windows were tinted, but I could see enough to recognize the driver. It was the same man from the pizza shop. And hanging from his rear-view mirror was a pair of tiny baby shoes, swaying lightly with the movement of the vehicle. He rolled down the passenger window. His eyes fixed on me with a hunger I didn't understand. "I'm 17, I blurted, my voice cracking. "And I have a boyfriend." The words felt like a shield, thin but necessary. I thought maybe it would embarrass him, send him away. But he just stared at me for a moment longer, as if memorizing my face, and then drove off without a word. The silence he left behind was worse than anything he could have said. That night, close to closing time, I was helping straighten the checkout lanes when a coworker whispered, "Someone's watching you." I turned. At the far end of the registers, the man stood. He wasn't buying anything, wasn't pretending to browse. He was just there, locked on me. His stare felt like a physical weight, pinning me in place. My stomach twisted. The manager noticed, his face hardening. He opened the office door so I'd have somewhere to retreat, and for a while I thought maybe the man would get bored. Instead, he drifted outside, planting himself near the entrance doors. He didn't leave. He stood just beyond the glass, waiting. When my shift ended, the manager insisted on following me in his car. He trailed me all the way to my house, headlights steady in my rear view, making sure I wasn't followed. Only after I was inside did he wave and pull away. I told myself that would be the end of it. That stalkers lived in TV movies, not in the aisles of supermarkets. I was wrong. A few days later, my aunt texted me with a link. "Is this about you?" she asked. I clicked. My blood turned to ice. It was a Craigslist post. A missed connection. And it was about me. The words described exactly what I'd worn that day, the ribbon in my hair, the loose strap of my overalls, the bright bracelet around my wrist. He remembered everything. Every detail. Even things I hadn't realized anyone could notice. And then there was the name. He called me Garrett. That wasn't my name. It wasn't even close. It was the result of a prank at work, when one of my co-workers swapped my name tag with his as a joke. I'd worn it for a couple of hours, laughing about it. Somehow, the man had caught that detail. That meant he'd been watching me the entire time, memorizing, following, close enough to notice something even I had almost forgotten. My manager responded to the Craigslist post, pretending to be a parent, demanding the man leave me alone. But threats in text mean little to someone who enjoys being seen. Because soon, the silver minivan was back. I spotted it in the lot. I saw it on side streets as I walked home. Even the flicker of sun on a passing silver car was enough to send my heart hammering. My world shrank into a map of reflective metal and phantom headlights. The worst night came when the store was quiet, the kind of quiet that rings in your ears. I turned into an aisle and froze. He was there. Just a few steps away, between boxes of cereal and stacked soda crates. No chance he could have parked and entered that fast. No reason he should have been inside at all. I screamed. The sound ripped through me like glass. He bolted. By the time anyone else arrived, he was gone, dissolved into the night as if he'd never been there. After that, the police were called. They didn't dismiss me. They didn't laugh. They assigned patrol cars. Some nights, an officer escorted me home after closing. My world had turned into a shadow play of escorts and headlights, every shift ending with the question of whether I'd make it home without seeing silver glint in the corner of my eye. Eventually, the company transferred me to another store, miles away. And just like that, he was gone. The silver minivan stopped appearing. The Craigslist posts dried up. He vanished, as though he'd been a fever dream. But the memory didn't vanish. It stayed, branded into me. I can still see the baby shoes dangling from his mirror. Tiny, innocent things, meant to symbolize life, family, beginnings. In his van, they became something twisted. A grotesque reminder that innocence could be hung like bait. And I still remember Garrett. That false name, taken from a joke, stolen by a stranger, carved into the internet like a scar. People like to think horror ends when the villain disappears. But the truth is, it lingers. It breathes differently. To this day, parking lots make me sweat. The hush of supermarket aisles at night tightens my throat. When I see a silver minivan, I can't help but glance at the rear view, half expecting those shoes to sway again. The man is gone. But his shadow isn't. And sometimes I think about how easily safety can be stripped away, how a place filled with family and laughter and fluorescent light can become a hunting ground. 17 was the year I learned that ghosts don't always come from the grave. Sometimes they drive minivans. Sometimes they know your name. Even when it isn't yours.